Somebody else may have to present my slides, though.
Officially starting now. It is my distinct pleasure to extend a very warm welcome from here in warm Antigua and Barbuda on behalf of the United Nations Regional Committee for Global Geospatial Information Management for the Americas, our President Sophia Christostoma, our Board of Directors, and our very dedicated Caribbean Geospatial Development Initiative Steering Committee. We extend these warm greetings to all esteemed SIDS4 delegates joining here from the American International University of Antigua, or elsewhere in Antigua and Barbuda, or those who are joining us from across the world. So we really officially welcome you to the CARIGEO virtual side event on Location Intelligence, the panacea to accelerated development in SIDS. This event is occurring during the proceedings of the United Nations 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States, which commenced on Monday, May 27th, and which will be concluding today, May 30th. It is important to note that this conference is held only once every 10 years. So we invite all attendees to post in the chat if you are a delegate here at the conference or you're joining from across the world, and please do indicate the country from which you are joining. We extend congratulations to the government and citizens of Antigua and Barbuda for successfully staging the conference and for so warmly accommodating us here in your lovely country. We have all felt very welcomed and royally treated. We also take this opportunity to extend our sincere condolences to the citizens of Papua New Guinea, given the devastating landslide that took over 2,000 lives since this week. We will briefly pause for a moment of silence as we mourn their loss. Fourth and last UN-GGIM geospatial side event occurring during SIDS4. This is a hallmark achievement as we champion the importance, the relevance, and the increased need for the use of geospatial information, Earth observation data, remote sensing data, blockchain, and artificial intelligence in addressing the unique challenges that affect us as SIDS within the Caribbean region and also within the Asia Pacific and the AIMS regions. CARIGEO was very pleased to partner with the OECS in terms of providing support, in addition to all the other key stakeholders, in hosting the on-site side event here on enhancing Caribbean development using data, geospatial information, and environmental monitoring, building a regional environmental information ecosystem, which was held on-site here on Tuesday. Congratulations are extended to United Nations Global Geospatial Knowledge and Innovation Center and its partners on their side event on geospatial technologies for sustainable development in SIDS, which was also held on Tuesday of this week. Congratulations are also extended to the Task Group on Climate Resilience for hosting their virtual side event on leveraging geospatial information for climate resilience, which was held yesterday. Today's side event will seek to highlight the importance of location intelligence in propelling growth. And I look forward to Danielle sharing further with you in terms of what today's event will unfold. So, as we carry you through the journey of today, you'll be aptly guided by your pilots, Danielle, Valerie, Elizabeth, and Cecile, who'll be guiding you through the proceedings as we look forward to hearing about the exciting work and the perspectives of our experts, Deirdre, Danielle, Salim, Beshem, Paul, and Leanne. We invite you to post comments and questions in the chat throughout the session. Resources will be posted at intervals in the chat for you to access. And we also invite you to visit the side event website, which will be posted in the chat also so that you can learn more about our moderators and our speakers and any additional information about the side event. We'll also be posting presentations and the recordings of the side event on that website. We wish you a very engaging, enlightening, thought-provoking, and action-inspiring experience. I now invite Danielle Takari Gilly, Head of Unit of Innovation and Statistical Dissemination in the Statistics Division of UN-ECLAC, to then bring you introductions. Over to you, Danielle.
Thank you, Barry. Let me check this. Well, thank you very much, Barry, for your inspiring welcome words. Good morning to everyone. Dear colleagues, receive my warm greetings from the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. We really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this activity, which aims to highlight the importance of location intelligence along with its associated processes and technologies to drive growth and sustainable development in small island development states. We would like to congratulate the efforts of our colleagues of CARIGEO, which is the subregional chapter of UN-GGIM Americas for the Caribbean, in organizing this relevant activity. From ECLAC, we are strongly supporting the work plan of the regional committee in our role of technical secretariat, as you know, and very committed into the goal of strengthening geospatial management in the region, especially assisting the challenges of the Caribbean region. We are very happy to see here a wide range of organizations interested in participating and sharing their knowledge and experience coming from public, private, and academic sectors related to geospatial data and technology. This is a great opportunity to explore possible partnerships that leverage skills and knowledge located in the different nodes of the diverse community. Coming back to the webinar specifically, as you may know, the agenda includes 3 sessions. The first one focused on the importance of location intelligence in propelling growth, highlighting geospatial data challenges, including availability, access, and ICT usage in SIDS. The second one will be a panel discussion, which will feature experts from the US Census Bureau, academic and private sector networks of the Americas, delving into solutions that leverage location intelligence and geospatial technologies and discuss data platform and institutional arrangements for an effective use. Session 3 will present real-life applications from Barbados, Jamaica, and Singapore on how location intelligence accelerates development across various sectors. Both section 2 and 3 will be followed by space for question and answer, so we strongly encourage you to participate and share your comments. Finally, at the end of the webinar, our colleague Cecil Blake from the United Statistics Division in New York will provide a summary of the event's key takeaways and a call to action for stakeholders to support and engage with the initiatives discussed. If you are interested, bios of moderators and presenters of this webinar are available at the UN-GGIM America website. And now I give the floor to Alvaro Monet, who will address the first presentation of the webinar, and I wish you a successful and productive webinar. Thank you, Barry, again.
Thank you, Daniel. Now I will try to share my screen because well, let me this one, okay. No. Well, give me 1 second. Otherwise, I will ask my colleagues to. Okay. Do you see my screen, my colleagues?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Great. That's good. So, good morning, dear colleagues. Again, one greetings from the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean for you all. In these few minutes, I would like to make a brief flight over the use of geospatial information and location intelligence as tools to promote the development of countries, highlighting the support they can offer to the management of priority issues in the Caribbean subregion. I will not go deep explanation on what location intelligence is, but try to connect with some challenges regarding the management of geospatial information related to access, data availability, governance, and the use of technologies, among others. Likewise, a reference will be made on the great support that the United Nations guidelines offer today through the Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management, UN-GGIM, in these matters. Here, there is a definition of the concept of location intelligence, taking as an example the proposal of our ESRI colleagues. location intelligence is information obtained by visualizing and analyzing geospatial data, overlaying location-specific data such as demographic, traffic, environment, economy, and climate on a map or smart dashboard reveals unique insights. Decision makers use location intelligence to better understand where and why things happen and plan what to do next. We could then affirm that location intelligence becomes something like a second floor at a level in which geospatial data, map services, APIs, and applications are all integrated to provide support to different management topics. Our colleagues in session 2 and 3 this morning will be able to provide more detailed technical features and practical examples on this concept. When we think about location intelligence, there are some fundamental aspects that must be put on the table. First, it is very important to identify and know the problem that must be solved, or what management issue requires location intelligence as support. Likewise, in the level below location intelligence, it is recommended to identify geospatial data sets that must be integrated to respond to the problem. Then, to know if these geospatial data sets already exist, who produced them, what their technical specifications are, what are the processes that should be used to integrate and add value, geospatial data, web services, and APIs to achieve location intelligence, and what are the software applications and associated technologies that come to support these integration processes. In this way, the good practices carried out by colleagues from other countries and regions, the experiences of the academic sector through research, and the solution offered by the private sector can be a very good reference. As I said before, discussions and work that our colleagues will address during the webinar will provide a more comprehensive view on this. As some of you may know, a workshop on the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework was held in St. Lucia in April last year. This meeting was attended by representatives of geospatial agencies and national statistic offices, who together discussed on how to apply United Nations guidelines to strengthen national processes related to generation and use of geospatial information to support decision-making and policies. At the beginning of this meeting, the OECS and CARIGEO authorities delivered messages about the importance of geospatial information to address the priority issues of the region. In this way, the Director General of the OECS remarked that strengthening geospatial and data management are necessary tools for supporting the small island development states' attainment of sustainable development. This facilitates more effective intervention and assists in utilizing the resources more effectively to improve the quality of life for the region people. Some of the areas that could be addressed are disaster management, including information to prioritize areas of high risk, climate change monitoring, planning for flooding events, and agriculture. Also, food security, endangered species monitoring, urban and rural planning, and analyzing the distribution of population, among others. By his side, the director of the regional statistics of CARIGEO highlighted the specific challenges in member countries, including the region's vulnerabilities to the impacts of climate change and other disasters. Economies based primarily on agriculture, tourism, and fisheries, which are the most vulnerable sectors, also hurricanes and floods, heavily impacting highly populated areas, and lack of appropriate indicator to effectively report and demonstrate the actual levels of vulnerabilities experienced by SIDS. Having identified the problems or knowing the priority issues to be addressed by decision makers and public policy formulators, we have the mission to identify what data sets are needed, to know who produced them, how to access them, what are their technical specifications, and other aspects. Also, as stated before, identify integration processes that should be used to add value to the data and achieve location intelligence, and determine which application should be used for this purpose. From the task outlined in the previous slide, several questions arise. Do we have all the data necessary to generate geospatial knowledge and location intelligence to support priority development issues in the Caribbean region and in particular SIDS sub-region? Do we have the technology and technical capabilities to process this data? Do we know the potential of application that add value to data and make it possible to advance location intelligence? Do we have adequate policies to enable expeditious sharing of geospatial data sets? Do we have an interoperability environment that facilitates exchange? Is there awareness among decision makers about the possibilities of using geospatial information? The situation may vary depending on the country or the type of problem and its information and location intelligence requirements. So, in response to these questions, several supportive conditions arise. These are only a sample, and just as an illustration, appear like different floors in a building. For example, cooperative data sharing environment, strengthened leadership, institutional mandates, and political acceptance, regulatory and legal environment that maximize the usefulness of geospatial information, legal and policy framework that respond to technological development, financing and initiatives for the integrated management of geospatial information, critical mass of data to support national development and innovation, statistics integrated with geospatial data, improved process for the collection, management, distribution, integration, and analysis of geospatial information based on standards, effective cooperation between disciplines and sectors, geospatial knowledge and capabilities at all levels, increased awareness and understanding of the value and potential uses of geospatial data and location intelligence within all the levels of governments. As it was said at the beginning of the presentation, the United Nations, through the Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management, provides valuable support to address a wide variety of challenges in these matters. Among these guidelines, the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, the UN-GGIF, becomes the major and comprehensive document that provides strategic and practical guidelines to strengthen national institutional arrangement on the management of geospatial and statistical information, which effectively support public policies and decision-making. The implementation of the 9 UN-GGIF strategic pathway for sure will contribute to advance in any of the supportive conditions presented in the previous slides. This is well recognized in the final statement of the St. Lucia UN-GGIF workshop, where the Caribbean countries agreed to champion and promote the adoption of the UN-GGIF in the Caribbean as a tool to advance national policy and development projects and programs, to provide data for the management and monitoring of the Sustainable Development Goals and support the progress towards achieving the 2030 Agenda, the Small Island Developing States, accelerated modalities of action, and other development agendas such as the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, the New Year Urban Agenda, amongst others. So in order to advance in addressing gaps and challenges in geospatial data and location intelligence, there are several forces that can converge in a shared effort. Global, regional, and national partners are called to collaborative work, leveraging skills, knowledge, and experience. Also, the guidance of the UN-GGIF through its strategic pathway on partnership and innovation can propose effective actions to strengthen collaboration. You are all, dear colleagues, invited to be part of this major endeavor. So thank you very much, and un abrazo para todos. So now I give the floor to my dear colleague, Valerie Grant.
Good morning, everyone. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. And this morning I have an esteemed panel, and this panel will feature experts from the U.S. Census Bureau, from the Academic Network Americas, the FIG, as well as the Private Sector Network Americas. We will delve into the solutions that really leverage the location intelligence and geospatial technologies, and we'll discuss data platforms that are available in the Americas, the institutional arrangements, the strategies, and the effective use. We will focus a bit on the UN-GGIF, and we will discuss how it's juxtaposed against supporting geospatial frameworks that exist and the related initiatives that are ongoing. So without further ado, I'm now going to invite our very first panelist, Mrs. Deirdre Bishop, who is the co-chair of UN-GGIM high-level group on the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, and she's also the head of Geography Dictation for the U.S. Census Bureau. Deirdre, please.
Great, greetings. Thank you, Valerie, and greetings, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you as part of this 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Valerie, I'm receiving a message that says you cannot start screen sharing while the other participant is sharing. Thank you.
You may go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Do you see my screen, please?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Well, I was delighted to be invited to be part of this conversation because I truly believe that location, geographic information can be the panacea to accelerating development and response to national priorities in the small island developing states and around the world. And happy to be here with you to share information on why I feel that way. Let's start by talking a little bit about participation in the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. Specifically, I'm very proud and honored to serve as one of the co-chairs of the high-level group of the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework. Alvaro touched on this a little bit in his presentation and talked about its role in the Caribbean to date. The high-level group is the highest subsidiary body within the UN-GGIM Committee of Experts, and it's comprised of 27 members. 4 of those members are the leaders of the UN-GGIM Committee of Experts. 5 of the members serve as regional committee chairs from each of the UN-GGIM regional committees across the world: Asia Pacific, the Arab states, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. It's also comprised of 18 member states, representatives who are leaders in the fields of geospatial development. And you can see those countries listed here. You may know some of them. And if you do and you want to learn more, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're tasked with providing the strategic leadership, oversight, guidance, and planning to ensure the uptake of the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework. This slide should look familiar to many on the call. Again, the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, fondly referred to as the UN-GGIF. Many of my remarks today will reference building strong foundations. The UN-GGIF is just that. It's a framework that was endorsed by the full committee of experts associated with UN-GGIM. It provides a basis and a guide for developing, integrating, strengthening, and maximizing geospatial information management in all countries, both developed and developing. And it's designed around 3 elements, as you can see here: governance, technology, and people. Within those 3 key elements, there are 9 strategic pathways. And on the UN-GGIM website, for which the link is showed here, you can find the guides associated with each one of these pathways. The guides provide information about context, approach, elements, guiding principles, and actions, and really helps establish that foundation for countries to efficiently plan, monitor, and respond to national priorities and challenges. Alvaro just showed the floors of the building. The UN-GGIF helps achieve the supportive conditions to advance geospatial information management, building those floors within the building. When we think about building the foundation to plan, monitor, and respond to our national priorities and challenges, what are those? Health and health security, digital connectivity, gender equity, climate equity and security, and so much more. Once you use the UN-GGIF to build your foundation, you can start to do better at planning, monitoring, and responding to these national priorities. and to share a few examples of how we're doing that in the United States at the United States Census Bureau. Let's look at just a few. First, we're integrating geographic information and location information with other data, such as statistical data about people, about internet availability and access, about weather and emergencies, about resilience and at-risk populations, and about poverty. We're integrating this information to create viewers, interactive mapping applications that can help leaders and people around the country drill in and focus on specific location to better plan, monitor, and respond. Thanks for the opportunity to share these brief remarks, and I look forward to the conversation. I'll now pass things over to Dan Roman for his presentation.
I'll make an attempt here as well to share. I think I did find a toggle, so we'll see if I can present or not. Screen one, okay, allow. So it doesn't look like it's going to display. Can anybody see the screen right now?
Yes, you may proceed.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll see if I have control over the screen. All right, so my name is Dan Roman. I am the Senior Advisor for Geodesy at NOAA's National Geodetic Survey, but I also serve in other capacities on the UN Subcommittee on Geodesy, but more specifically here as the chair alongside Dr. Casanova for the FIGM America's Capacity Development Network. I'll speak briefly to the FIG and its function, and then I'll speak a little bit more to activities within the Americas. So then, did everybody see my slide advance? That's the next question.
Yes,
Yes, Dan.
Excellent. All right. There was some concern about control over the slide deck. All right. So the International Federation of Surveyors, FIG, it's about 150 years old now. We have member associations, and it's the MA, and then you also have academic members, affiliate members, and also corporate members. So the academic members are obvious. It's the universities throughout the world that are interested in participating. And the affiliate members are usually mapping, cadastral, or geodetic agencies such as the National Geodetic Survey. And corporate members are just that, corporate sponsors for a lot of the activities. So as a group, the FIG basically collectively is representing the member associations. So a member association, for context then, in any country there may be surveying or remote sensing or companies that are affiliated types of traditional positions that are or activities that are associated with surveying. Those group together into professional societies. Those national professional societies form the member associations of FIG. So for Jamaica, it was the Land Surveyors Association of Jamaica. They then represent a group of companies that are all surveying or affiliated types of groups, and that is the member association for FIG. So its members are those associations, and the focus is on trying to satisfy and make sure that any needs that they have are taken care of. I won't go into too much detail on the organization of FIG. There's certainly a website, fig.net, that you can go to, and it will lay out a lot of this information. But it is a UN-recognized professional NGO, so it is professional organizations as opposed to being a scientific one, say like the International Association of Geodesy. It does represent, as I said, surveying and aligned fields. So there are a lot of, as it's been alluded to here, there's a lot of fields that touch on this, from engineering practices to economic and ecological types of applications. All of them have some type of surveying application that is affiliated with them. So there's typically an interest in trying to ensure that those groups' interests are represented. In particular here, I also note, and this is where I bring in the comments about like the academic network of the Americas, there is a need for continuing education and degrees. So a lot of countries have some type of certification process, and there's a need to make sure that you stay current on the abilities of and capabilities of professions that are out there. So the intent then is that we have an alignment with both academic institutions for training new generations of surveyors and those in the aligned professions, and then also continuing education credits to make sure those that graduate actually maintain their skills and continue to serve the countries in which they're working. Key again here is the leveraging the interests of the member associations. So we work a lot of times with the governments. We'll work within the UN structure. We'll work within the ISO because we're assimilating that information, because in the end, the professionals that are on the ground in the private sector are the ones that have to implement things like standards, like the requirements for, certifications, like meeting any types of constructions or timelines that might be set out by the governments as a part of an IGIF type template. So in the end, we want to make sure that those in the private sector that actually are the ones that are accomplishing the things that will lead to the success of the societal development goals are in turn the ones that are served as well, and make sure that they're involved in the process. So that is the stake for FIG in terms of capability and capacity development. So as you can see in the UN interactions, they participate in the thematic groups. We have liaisons into a number of different organizations. But the key here is the extension of the capability and capacity development efforts to the private sectors in the national member associations, but throughout the region, to make sure that we're better able to accomplish the SDGs for everyone. And then for timeline, this is a relatively new network. So within the structure of FIG, they have a number of commissions which focus on the specific areas, but they also have regional networks. I just came from the Africa Regional Networks meeting, which was during the FIG working week. I supported a lot of the activities there, trying to bring World Bank representatives in to talk with some of the UN, to talk with some of the national representatives. It was very successful. It was interesting because it highlights some of the problems where the funding can come into a finance minister, but that doesn't necessarily make it over to the land administration minister, nor to any of the others that might start to disseminate those funds to actually accomplish some of the tasks that would be needed for a country level action plan to achieve the SDGs. So there are some areas there where we're experiencing it. We can see it from the outside, if you will, in the private sector.
Dan, we're at, if you could wrap that up.
Okay, fair enough. The only things I'll point out then are clarity on the links between the different groups, as I just mentioned in 24. There is a potential for a workshop we're looking for in the Caribbean in the 24 to 25 range. And then finally, I would also note that we're looking forward to holding an event, a regional network event in Uruguay in 26. And that is all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Stop sharing.
We are going to now go over to more partners from the private sector network, and Mr. Salim Samaya. He is the manager at ESRI, nonprofit and global organizations, and he's going to discuss with us, Salim.
Very good. Thank you very much, Simone. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to participate in this side event and contribute to the discussion. I'm Salim Samaya. I lead ESRI's nonprofit and global organizations team. You may have met some of my colleagues at the SIDS4 event this week. I was sad not to be there. At ESRI, sustainable development is a key area of our work with many different users and partners across the development space. We really focus on trying to support users and our partners to apply the geographic approach to development, really integrating social, economic, and environmental factors to deepen our understanding and to provide granular geospatial data on exactly where development investments and interventions need to be made and how. We have a number of different partnerships that we're involved in the space. Specifically, the one that I wanted to highlight today is the SDG Data Alliance. ESRI's been involved with the SDG Data Alliance over the last 7 years, collaborating closely with partners, including the Public Foundation, W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and UN-GGIM, among others. The goal of the partnership is really to enable countries to use data and geospatial technology to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. We have a fundamental core focus on SDG 10, reducing inequality as a key step towards improving standards of living. And how, what we're really focused on doing in the Data Alliance is supporting countries to develop their UN-IGIF country level action plans to provide a really actionable roadmap of steps to build geospatial capacity and infrastructure, as well as to deploy SDG data hubs that allow governments to share their SDG data, monitor development investments, track the SDGs, et cetera. So one of the investments or contributions that we've made as part of this has been to develop a SDG Data Hub solution that is in use by a number of countries. Specifically, I would just highlight briefly one of the more recent hubs that's been launched by the government of Burkina Faso last summer in August 2023. You can visit this site and find and explore their SDG data that they've published. For example, here, just quickly to show you, here's their SDG indicator data for Goal 1 and a variety of different indicators. You can see it in different forms, but there's lots of interesting data on this site and some of the other data hubs that have been supported by the SDG Data Alliance with different countries. I'll share some of these links and would encourage you to check it out and explore some of these yourselves. So more kind of specifically related to the challenges and issues of small island developing states. Since last year, Public Foundation and the SDG Data Alliance have been collaborating with the government of Antigua and Barbuda, the Alliance of Small Island States, and the UN Office of Project Services to support the establishment of a SIDS Center of Excellence and related SIDS Global Data Hub. This was launched this week at the SIDS4 event, and the Center of Excellence has been broadly endorsed as a key mechanism to ensure that all SIDS will have necessary infrastructure, knowledge, and productive capacity to leverage data and technology to advance their development and to mitigate vulnerabilities. One of the key pillars of the Center of Excellence is SIDS Global Data Hub, and this is among other kind of pillars of work that the Center of Excellence will focus on. As many of you are aware, a data hub is really kind of a set of technologies that connect different types of stakeholders to information, data sharing and collaboration, and various kinds of applications and tools. The vision for the SIDS Global Data Hub is that it will establish a sustainable mechanism for SIDS countries to access data and technology and different applications that will support their development. So over the last few months, we have supported.
Salim?
Yes?
We will come back to some of that in the discussions, but we will move to the next speaker at this point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we have the next speaker, Professor Bisham Ramlal, and he's the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering at UWI St. Augustine, and he will give us an overview as to what the academic network, and in particular UWI, has been doing in the region with collaborators. Bisham.
Thank you, Valerie, and it is indeed my pleasure to do this presentation. In this presentation, though, I will focus more on the Geospatial Observation Center at UWI and some of the activities we've been doing. And it's wonderful to see that a SIDS Data Hub has been created, because I can anticipate that a lot of the things that we will generate out of this observation center could find its way and available through the Data Hub. That said, let me just quickly give you an explanation as to why this is important. First, a little bit about data cubes, so you get an understanding of what we are trying to do here at the University of the West Indies, an overview of the Geospatial Observation Center, and some benefits to sustainable development, especially for SIDS, of having such a data center or an observation data center. First, in terms of the data cube and why it is important, the proposed Geospatial Observation Center that we are creating that's the title for it, but it's a data cube. And data cubes, we will establish the 7th of its kind in the world. We've heard of Digital Earth Africa, the Open Data Cube in Australia, and so on. And this data cube will also do similar type of work and contribute in similar ways. So in terms of managing and analyzing vast amounts of Earth observation data, especially satellite remotely sensed data, organizing that data in an array and in a structure that makes it much easier to handle these large data sets. Especially now we are getting, terabytes and terabytes of data coming in from satellites on a daily basis. Making sure that the way we process the data is consistent so that we get data that is valuable in our particular context. And ensuring that we get insights into our particular geospatial challenges in the region using a source that is reliable, that is repetitive, and so on. The Open Data Cube, in terms of overall how it's designed, we have data, we have infrastructure, and we have applications. And in essence, that's what we're establishing at UE. This particular data center that we are establishing is being funded by the government of Mexico. And the first phase of the project is to strengthen the geospatial infrastructure by installing, very high level, high performance servers that would be able to download a lot of imagery from various satellite platforms, and then use that to do analysis and data extraction. We are also, once the infrastructure is up and running, we are going to provide technical training. We have done some training before, but we are also going to train so that persons would be able to, in every country in the region, and others who may be interested from other parts of the world who want to work on Caribbean-related projects, to be able to access and use the facility to do various kinds of data analysis. And then thirdly, to make sure that we sorry about that, we provide a lot of awareness building, not only for technical persons, but for government ministers, for senior politicians and technocrats across the region, so that we are aware of, they're aware of the work we are doing. We see, and I think I don't need to say this because Alvaro and others would have said this, that that having data is going to be beneficial to a lot of the, in addressing a lot of the development challenges in the region, whether it's environmental, social, financial, and agricultural. So we see this as contributing significantly in reducing the data poverty that exists in the region. And with that, thank you very much.
Dr. Ramlal. Thank you very much for that presentation, Dr. Ramlal, and we will be asking you more about that shortly. And now we go over to Ms. Simone Lloyd, who is the Caribbean vocal. Simone, please.
Can you confirm if you're seeing the slides?
Slides are visible.
Okay, in presentation mode? Wonderful. All right. So it's my pleasure to share with you a few CARIGEO initiatives that have been propelling growth within the region. So I am happy that my colleagues have touched on various aspects of my presentation, so I'll just flow through quickly. So CARIGEO is a Caribbean Geospatial Development Initiative that really focuses on empowering the Caribbean region with respect to providing support to member states towards them building their national geospatial infrastructures. It's made up of national mapping agencies and also representatives of statistical organizations. One of the major achievements of CARIGEO is the Caribbean Geoportal. Deidre would have spoken to the IGIF. One of the strategic pathways of the IGIF, strategic pathway 4 speaks to data, strategic pathway 5 speaks to innovation. And so the Geoportal is that hub that really supports and facilitates access and sharing of data through the innovation of a portal, so that persons within the region, whether you're academic, whether you are general citizenry, whether you are professionals, whatever your background is, you're able to collaboratively work towards generating, sharing, and utilizing and analyzing data that can support your various works. And so we continue to encourage that. We're happy that Esri has partnered. Esri is a member of CARIGEO, and they've been providing stalwart support with respect to driving this initiative and maintaining the GeoPortal. With that, the GeoPortal also facilitates access with respect to capacity development. And through that, the access in terms of various training opportunities that exist, different from the various tools that are there to facilitate the creation of web maps and spatial analytics, and in addition to doing fieldwork activities with respect to whatever area that you will fall. We have resources that are there to empower persons to be able to build the capacity, understand the portal, and utilize it in various areas. And so there are various events of which we would have had before, of which the links are there, of which persons can go on and actually access and go through and learn on your own and actually utilize your portal to do the work that you need to do. So there you would have spoken to the IGIF, and Vara also would have spoken to the work that we've been doing with respect to promoting greater awareness and understanding of the IGIF within the Caribbean sub-region of the Americas, and with that, the building of the capacity of persons to be able to start the process of working on country-level action plans and then progressing to the various stages with respect to implementation of the IGIF. With that, we are very happy for the work that was done pre, during, and post the workshop, and we look forward to additional efforts being made. We want to applaud ECLAC sub-regional headquarters for the Caribbean, who is going to be providing support to the government of Trinidad and Tobago with planning their national IGF workshop, which should be happening in August of this year. We are hoping that based on that workshop, we will also be able to facilitate a Caribbean workshop, IGF workshop, another one, hopefully on the heels of that workshop, or for persons being able to benefit from the TNT workshop who are from other Caribbean countries. So that potential. Geostatistics awareness is a major initiative of UN-GGIM. How it is that we can harness power through the fusion, the integration of geospatial data and statistical data. And so with that, CARIGEO, through the support of OECS, significantly driving this initiative, we would have been able to launch a geostats awareness program under the theme Caribbean Together, Everyone Counts, whereby we are empowering students who are aged from 9 to 12 and also 13 to 18 to understand the importance of geospatial information and statistics and the fusion and what can come from that, and to build, and based on their awareness, to build the potential with respect to career paths that are geospatial and statistically fused or related. So we're thankful for the partners who have contributed to all of that. So based on the strategic pathways, core based on the work that we've been doing in CARIGEO would be data, innovation, partnerships, collaboration, communication and engagement, and also the building of capacity. Thank you. Valerie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Simone. Okay, so I think we have lots of questions for panelists, and so if they can just come on camera, we are going to really get into this discussion. So first up, Deirdre, I wondered, you started to tell us a little bit about some of the work you're doing at the U.S. Census Bureau, and I wondered, how does the U.S. Census Bureau leverage location intelligence to really support national growth and development? And what are some of the lessons that you have learned that you believe that would be useful to SIDS?
Great, thank you, Valerie. The Census Bureau uses geographic information and location intelligence every single day. As many of you know, the Census Bureau is a statistical organization. We conduct a decennial census every 10 years to learn about population and housing. We conduct an economic census every 5 years to learn about businesses. And we conduct over 100 surveys on an ongoing basis to learn more about the people and economy of the United States. The Census Bureau relies on the Geography Division at the Census Bureau to build the foundation for every other activity, to collect the data, to analyze the data, and to disseminate the data. As we compile the geographic information, we're working to ensure that every piece of statistics we collect is tabulated to the right geographic location. It's taken us decades of work, blood, sweat, and tears to get this right, to build this foundation, but we're at a place where our geography is the most accurate and complete as it's ever been before. things that we've learned over the years that I believe small island developing states can benefit from. It's very important to have strong governance associated with the development of geographic information. Define the roles and the responsibilities, know who's doing what people have to contribute, their strengths and their weaknesses. Use tools that are available, like the UN-GGIF, to build the framework and the foundation. Focus on the governance, the technology, and the people. But while you're relying on tools and other countries that have already done this, don't be afraid to test new things. What I'm excited about and what I'm finding is that even though we in the United States have a strong geographic foundation, other countries are starting to leapfrog us through their use of satellite imagery, Earth observations, location information. Don't be afraid to test new things along the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. Sounds like sound advice to me. I wanted to find out, Daniel, how is FIG America's capacity development network supporting or is planning to support the growth of geospatial capacities in SIDS?
Thank you for the questions. I appreciate it, Valerie. We're looking in combination with a couple of things. We have access to a couple of different funding mechanisms usually through UN organizations, but also through private sector. The primary thing we're trying to do is identify groups such like the Caribbean SIDS, finding common areas where they have needs for capacity development, and then looking to identify potential sources such as NASA or other groups that can provide training. But we also have the ability to bring in from the International Association of Geodesy. We have contacts there where they can conduct specific types of training for geospatial information. In the end, what we're aiming to do is we're trying to identify wherever the needs are and link them up to those who might be able to meet those needs. In addition, then we're also trying to leverage commonalities. I would say in the case of the Pacific SIDS, there are a number of different regions, the Pacific region, the Africa region, and the Americas region. Within the case of the Pacific SIDS, they were able to not only identify, but they were able to leverage something like the University of West Indies. They have the University of South Pacific that they basically were able to establish common training curricula. They were able to adopt that in each of the island nations. And then what they do is they're able to pool the different resources together. And from that, they're able to collectively go around and conduct any type of campaign that they need to do, both from the government side and the private sector side. So there are mechanisms out there that we can try to replicate. Some of that will require some type of international desk to be funded, and we'll have to look to try and put that in place as well. But it is a means of collectively bringing together all the different requirements and trying to find commonality particularly for the Caribbean SIDS. The other aspect of it is we are also trying to reach out to make sure that those needs are sent over to the Global Geodetic Center of Excellence, because they can assimilate them at the global level, but then they can understand the regional and particularly the needs for like the SIDS. So we are leveraging a couple of different groups that we're participating in. We have a lot of contacts also with Esri, but also with Trimble and some of the other private sector networks that you're familiar with. And a lot of times they're able to support activities within the FIG for these types of things. But we can also leverage some of the governmental activities, particularly as an example is NASA, which conducts a lot of operations both in the Latin America region and also in the Caribbean. One other thing I will mention here that I didn't get to in my presentation is that the next FIG working week will be in Brisbane, which is pretty far around the world from us, but they are also hosting a SIDS meeting there, specifically for the Pacific Island. But I'd like to try and see if we can get some of the Caribbean island nations to come visit. They certainly, the Pacific Island nations did come to join us when we had our meeting last year in Orlando, to see if we can find a mechanism to try and get some of the Caribbean nations to come over to Brisbane to see and talk to a little more detail with the Pacific Islands and understand how they've been able to leverage their assets and step up. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. And I noticed you mentioned, I'm working with the private sector. So I think I will go to Salim and find out. And you have, you've given us exciting news about the launch that took place here in Antigua at SIDS4 for the Global Data Hub. But I wondered, in addition to things like that, how can the private sector, in your belief, contribute to the advancement of location intelligence and geospatial technologies in SIDS? And what role has ESRA been playing in this context?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. Yeah, we do our best to try and contribute to different kinds of initiatives and partnerships that advance development efforts. As mentioned, we're supporting and have been for a while the SDG Data Alliance. We work closely with the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, in addition to our collaborations with CARIGEO around the Caribbean Geoportal and otherwise. We also, as a company, we have a number of different programs that try to make our technology accessible to everyone who would benefit from it. So we have programs for statistics, modernization, land modernization, and other government functions that would benefit from geospatial technology. And so we're really just looking for ways to get our technology into people's hands, to support and enable them to build the necessary capacity to be able to take advantage of them to full use, and to leverage geospatial data and technology to have an impact in their own national development priorities. So it's through those programs and partnerships that's a big way that we try to participate and support and enable those efforts.
All right, thank you so much. So Dr. Ramlal, I wondered, you mentioned about some of the things that you're doing, and I wondered, how do you believe that academic institutions like the University of the West Indies, how do you think that these organizations can contribute to the advancement of geospatial technologies in SIDS? Of the notable research projects or initiatives that you may want to highlight?
Okay, thank you very much, Valerie, for the question. At UE, we do quite a bit. We have quite a footprint. We have 5 campuses on different Caribbean islands, as well as our global campus. And we have upwards of 60,000 students who are part of the university system. And therefore, we have quite a reach. And because we are the only regional institution, we feel that we have a responsibility to do as much as we can. So Daniel mentioned, for example, the capacity building with respect to surveyors, but we not only train surveyors, we also train GIS technicians, GIS specialists, master's level programs, and so on. In addition to capacity building, we do quite a bit of work in research and development. And as part of that, we look at various challenges that may exist in the region, whether it's flooding, coastal inundation. We look at sargassum, seaweed mapping and monitoring, and other projects like that. And one of the interesting projects that we've just gotten funding for is the Geospatial Observation Center to provide, geospatial data to all of our stakeholders in the region. We've also done quite a bit of work looking at sustainable energy sources and strategies. And so recently we signed a memorandum of understanding with 2 major institutions in the region, where we are looking at doing wind resource assessments. We're looking at solar systems in terms of how we can leverage that to reduce the carbon footprint, as well as we've gotten funds from the Green Fund. This is the International Green Fund, to support carbon capture and how we can store that. And we are working to do what is called a carbon capture atlas for Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, there are a lot of things that are in the pipeline with respect to those kinds of projects. We also provide quite a bit of technical and professional support across the region to make sure that our Caribbean technical geospatial experts are able to have the kind of skill sets that are required to support their governments. And finally, we do quite a bit of awareness building to make sure that because we sit at a CARICOM level, we are able, we have a seat at the table, as it were, with government ministers from across the region, and therefore we are doing more now to bring awareness about the value of geospatial information. So I'll stop there, and if there is a follow-up, I'm happy to facilitate.
Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Simone. As I was sitting here, you represent, you're the Caribbean vocal, but you have an active role to play in Jamaica. And I wondered, could you share some real life applications of location intelligence in Jamaica, or as you have seen across the Caribbean, that have had significantly accelerated development across various sectors? What does that look like?
Thank you for that question, Valerie. So you're actually asking me to speak to and address my second presentation. So where Jamaica is concerned, we've done a number of groundbreaking projects that involve the use of location intelligence and geospatial information. So later in the side event, I'll be speaking to how it is that we're able, based on the fact that we have a thriving tourism industry, location intelligence is going to be playing a key role with respect to examining particular challenges or threats to tourism. A key one being that of the Sargasso. So I'm going to be speaking to that later. Apart from that, threats, there are other threats. National security is of prime importance. National security, if that is not in place, if that is not robust, how it is that all the various sectors of a society is threatened, right? And so I'll be speaking to how it is that our national security with respect to our Jamaica Defense Force, how it is that they use location intelligence and various forms of geospatial technologies to assist in their efforts with respect to ensuring that our borders are secured, or special economic zone is maintained in terms of its safety and our personnel on ground, also with respect to the management of personnel on ground, and whenever it is that we have different types of zones to ensure that law and order is maintained in a particular event, how it is that geospatial information is used to drive that, location intelligence is used to drive that. Also, when one looks at climate resilience, the fact that more and more we are using geospatial information to drive how it is that one is able to really utilize, hone in, and understand what are the challenges where climate resilience is concerned and how that can be effectively addressed. So I'll be speaking more to that when I go through my second presentation. Over to you, Valerie.
Okay, and I apologize for some noise you may be hearing in our background. We really have no control about it. Both Simone and I, we are on location at SIDS, and people are excited to see each other, and so they're greeting each other as they go along. I wanted to just find out if there is any questions from the audience, and if the audience wants to put those questions in the chat, we want to have your engagement and we want to entertain those questions so our panelists can really accommodate answering those questions. But while we get the questions from the audience, I have some other questions, and I wanted to find out from Deirdre, in your work at the global level, what are some of those key challenges in geospatial data availability and access that you have seen, and how can SIDS address similar challenges to improve the geospatial capability? Because we all know the power of geospatial, but if you really don't have access to the data, then there's really not much you can do in terms of getting the needed information products. So what does that look like at the global level, and what are your recommendations?
Thank you, Valerie. I'm going to call out 3 challenges in relation to data access and availability. First, finance. Second, visibility. And third, equity. And I'd like to talk for a minute about the trajectory that we've experienced in the United States in terms of data access and availability. In building the Census Bureau's Geographic Foundation, in terms of addresses, address information and address point, latitude and longitude coordinates, we primarily rely on the United States Postal Service. We also partner with tribal, state, and local governments. Working with these entities has helped us build an address database that's 97.3% complete, but we still have specific areas of challenges. Those include Puerto Rico, challenges very similar to those experienced by the small island developing states, remote Alaska, and also American Indian reservations where indigenous populations live. Using the principles of the UN-GGIF, we're working to overcome the challenges that we're experiencing in these areas. And I'll talk about that for a minute. In terms of finance, we're working together with the administration here in the United States to obtain funding to support address and geospatial development in Puerto Rico.
Thank you very much.
I would encourage others to take a look at what we're doing there and use that as a model. In terms of visibility, we're using Pathway 9, communication and engagement, and we're working to standardize our message across the globe. And then in terms of equity, I would encourage people to look at several of the pathways. Pathway 1, about governance, roles, and responsibilities. 2, policy and legal. 4, data. Pathway 7, about partnerships, and Pathway 8, capacity and education. Because if we're going to succeed in the small island developing states, we need the knowledge on the ground in those countries. Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to conserve bandwidth here, so I'm taking my camera off. It seems like my network is struggling a little bit. I'm having some challenges of my own on this side. So while you're answering your questions, and I'm going to go to Daniel in a minute, but while you're answering your questions as panelists, I want you to think about the question that was posed by a member of our audience about the fact that they're interested in an Afro-Caribbean collaboration on sustainability, and they wanted to know your inputs on that. So I don't know if Simone and Bishem can think about that question and kind of incorporate answers to that question in their answers as we go through. So Danielle, I wondered, what are the institutional arrangements that are really essential for the effective use of geospatial technologies in SIDS, in your opinion, and how can these be fostered?
Thank you for the question. And I'm glad you did see the question. I wanted to bring your attention to it if I didn't. And I think Simone would be an excellent candidate for trying to answer it. As to what we're looking to do, the primary things that we're looking at right now is to identify those member associations I mentioned. And again, when we say surveying, we don't mean just the traditional guys out doing surveying. Pretty much anybody who's assimilating data, there's a geospatial component to it. Where is it located, the thing that you're observing? All of that has to come together. Finding those groups of individuals and making sure that we have identified them, and then being in contact with the national governments and making sure that those two groups of people are actually talking to one another, that the governments have established some types of standards compliance, that they have laws in place maybe, and these are components that would be a parts of the IGIF and their country level action plan, and part of a regional network, say agreed upon in the Caribbean region. But then in addition, we also need to make sure that any of the capabilities that need to be extended out to that private sector, anybody who's collecting geospatial information in terms of be it hydrography or being it on land in terms of mapping out from remote sensing, all of that is surveying. That is all collecting information and positioning it to add to a GIS. So we're concerned with making sure that the information collected is done so in a consistent manner. And that's when we work with, you make sure that they have common training. So that's when we want to work through something like the University of West Indies to make sure that they all have, each of the nations has that common training, but then each of the nations has to adopt a set of standards that they agree to. And that's where you have to have some type of a regional agreement between the Caribbean SIDS on what they're looking for in terms of making sure that all of their different geospatial data sets truly can integrate. So there is interactions between the governments to make sure that they're on track and what they're doing can migrate out to the private sector. But there's a whole component in there about training, both in the research and development, which I wholeheartedly encourage as a senior scientist myself. But we have to focus on the operational component of it, which is taking the areas that have been established and trying to find a way to bring that out into the private sector. Again, as I said, that getting it to the private sector is where you start to assimilate all those skills and you start to enable things like many of the SDGs. So
right.
The links are all there, but trying to bring them together and have everybody talking is the key to the capacity development.
Thanks, Daniel. And as you speak about private sector, Salim, I wondered what examples of successful private sector collaborations can you share that have had significant impact on geospatial development in SIDS?
Yeah, I guess just briefly, I would cite a few of that I've already mentioned. Certainly the collaboration that we've had with CARIGEO is an important one that we value and that we think, is contributing to both development and other objectives that countries in the Caribbean have or can. And then we're really excited about the partnerships that we have with the SDG Data Alliance and the work related to the SIDS Center of Excellence and SIDS Global Data Hub. And yeah, we hope that that can have a real impact on countries' ability to access some of these data and technologies to impact their and accelerate their development. We have other partnerships as well, and it's really in the kind of the ethos of for Esri as a company where we're looking to collaborate and partner with different organizations. So we would be very open to and welcome, any discussions to explore new things that we could be doing that would be helpful.
All right. I'm sure that persons will reach out on that. Dr. Ramlal, you are responsible for the Geospatial Observation Center at UE, and I wanted to find out what is the role of that center in supporting Caribbean member states?
Thank you for the question. What I would say here is that we will be making the products as well as, in fact, the actual center available to all interested parties across the region. We are creating a geoportal with products that will be served out to all Caribbean stakeholders for their easy access, but as well as the tools and technologies that we have at the center, so that if there is a remote sensing specialist or an Earth observation specialist from any country in the region, or any consultant or any specialist who wants to support a particular country, would be able to get access and to process that data for use for that particular application. So we are at the initial stages of setting up everything to allow that, but certainly we will be making it available. And an announcement of the fully functional center would be done over the next 3 or 4 weeks is the time horizon that I do have. And so definitely everyone will be aware through the various channels, including CARIGEO, UN-GGIM, Esri, who is a good partner to the university as well. So we will be sharing that very shortly.
Great, thanks, Dr. Ramlal. So Simone, while you weigh in on the question that I had posed about, the Act for Caribbean sustainability platform, I also wanted you to tell us a little bit on partnerships, because that's also something that looks like a partnership that are key. We have recognized, we've been here, and the words that we've heard every session is partnerships. Could you provide any examples of successful collaborative projects that has been facilitated through partnerships among regional stakeholders, and what strategies can be employed to strengthen and build on some of these partnerships?
Thank you so much for that question, Valerie. The truth is, all that CARIGEO has been able to achieve as a steering committee on the UN-GGIM Americas is based on our forging of partnerships, relationships, collaborations with various bodies, whether they be international, whether they be regional, whether they be private, academic. The categories vary, but what is important is being able to see the synergies based on the mandate of each body, and with that being able to collaborate and being able to collectively work towards achieving our goals. So with that, I would have spoken to the Geoportal, which is a major collaboration spearheaded by Esri. Esri is a primary funder for the Geoportal. But apart from that, in order for the Geoportal to be able to be maintained, it requires significant contribution from other stakeholders. So NOAA, from NASA, from other sources, and we encourage collaboration with respect to a community of mappers within the Caribbean, persons actively contributing based on the work they're doing and uploading accordingly on the GeoPortal and integrating with other data that is there and being able to harness that using the tools that are available to be able to make better and informed decisions. So that is key. Apart from that, our move with respect to trying as best as possible to implement the IGF throughout the region has been a major collaborative effort. We're very thankful for the support of the high-level group on the IGIF, who has been supportive from the onset up until current. We're very happy for UN-GGIM Americas, the Secretariat, who has been providing a lot of parental support with respect to execution, also to UN-ECLAC as the Technical Secretariat for UN-GGIM Americas, has been very good in terms of holding of hand, assisting in terms of the capacity development initiatives, in terms of building awareness and building the skill sets that are necessary for us to be able to start the process in terms of understanding, but also working towards the creation of our individual country level action plans. All right, so that's a major collaborative effort. Apart from that, what is core is the impetus, the integration, the support from regional bodies. So the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, in addition to CARIGEO, the Caribbean community, have been very integral in supporting these efforts. Because the fact is, any work being done by CARIGEO is really for the benefit of Caribbean countries, and so engaging regional bodies that are active within the Caribbean, whose mandate is to ensure the advancement of Caribbean countries, is key. And so with that, getting them on board, championing the cause, them buying into the cause, and the OECS has been so responsive. Dr. Jules and his entire team has really been providing a lot of support with respect to the IGF move, different from looking at the Geostats Awareness Program and supporting that as a major initiative. Another achievement of CARIGEO with respect to capacity building is that of a Caribbean Your Story competition, of a student competition of which we had 2 years ago. That was a major success, which would not have been possible unless we had the full support of the entire steering committee, different from UB St. Augustine, which would have been key, Esri as the major driving force for that project, with respect to updating, maintaining the GeoPortal, facilitating the webinar sessions so that teachers, so that students were able to be trained in various forms of geospatial technologies and being able to understand what are the requirements of the competition so that they could effectively participate. And so we're happy that that was a major success in terms of a competition to create greater awareness of geospatial in the Caribbean and how it is used, how it's applicable. There were major projects coming out of that, which were groundbreaking based on the work that was done by the students. And so we're happy for that success. In addition, over to you, Val.
All right, thank you so much, Simone. So there are several partnerships that are taking place. Thanks for highlighting that. Wanted to note, and I noticed, thank you so much, my panelists, for responding to those questions in the chat. Susanna, we see your question. Definitely, UE has said open to collaborating. CARIGEO, that's something we look at in terms of LiDAR as well, and to see what are the kinds of training. That's why when we assess the needs of the Caribbean, which we often do from time to time, that's why we ask persons to fill out those surveys. We know they can be annoying, and you are suffering from survey fatigue, but tell us, and we listen, and we try to see how best we can facilitate. I don't know if, Simone, I notice you have your hand up.
Yes, just want to put in one plug. So I note Susanna's question and her interest with respect to customized capacity building training for St. Lucia. In the side event that happened 2 days ago, the OECS side event of which we provided support on, Grenada, when the minister spoke to the challenges of when it is that workshops occur, training initiatives occur, and one individual from a country comes, how it is that in many cases, shortly afterwards, in short succession, they lose that person. And so whatever knowledge base or skill that would have been obtained would have been lost to the country. And so the Minister for Grenada would have championed the cause with respect to having us looking at potentially having national training initiatives for individual Caribbean countries. So that is something for us to look at as a potential for the future where CARIGEO is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I recognize that are there any other questions from the audience? And please, even while our session closes out, I know that you can put your questions there and we will try to answer them in the chat. To the audience, or my panelists, I wanted to give you the opportunity to give each of you a minute to provide the final takeaways. What do you want persons to really understand about the area that you've been discussing, whether you're private sector, whether you're academia, whether it is that you are a member of the UN-GGIM and trying to advance things like the United Nations IGIF, please let us know what are those parting remarks as we close out this panel. Deirdre, let's start with you.
Thanks, Valerie. In terms of closing remarks, I would remind everyone that geographic information is essential to building a strong foundation for many, many other activities, including data collection, data analysis, and data dissemination. One way you can build a strong geographic foundation is to use the pathways associated with the UN-GGIF and focus on those pathways that are of most need in your nation. And then don't be afraid to reach out to other experts, to other colleagues along the way. There's lots of support out there to make good things happen. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. We'll go to Daniel.
Thank you. As someone who wears many hats, I would say that the key here is also to dealing with the people in the different organizations, but getting them to talk to one another. That there tends to be sometimes a mentality for stovepipe. I've got my organization, I do things this way. To Susanna's question about how an individual nation, this is where collaboration, both in the academic sector and then also in the private sector, and then between the islands. So there's a lot of different ways where there can be discussion, where capacity and capability can be developed. And it certainly comes from people dealing with other people, though. And this is the key, is none of this happens unless it's people that are engaging with one another. So dialogue and continuing to dialogue and learn is what the true growth is going to be here. And I think that is the best way towards the capability and capacity development. But
right.
That's
Thanks,
about
Dan.
it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Salim?
Yeah, I'll actually really echo some of Dan's comments there. I think collaboration and partnership is really fundamental and key to getting us to the achievement of the SDGs in SIDS and beyond as well. Look at the partnerships and the initiatives that exist and how you can take advantage of them and contribute to them. Let's come together around these things and work together to have an impact on the issues that we're facing. For us at ESRI, we're always looking to learn and understand things that we could be doing differently or better or anew in order to contribute to these kinds of initiatives and partnerships. So our door is always open. We would be welcome any sort of feedback or suggestions or ideas as to things that we could be doing that would contribute to some of these efforts or the needs that folks are expressing. And I'll respond to some of the questions in the chat while others are speaking. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Celine. Professor Ranwell.
Thank you, Val. And, I think it is safe to say that we all believe collaboration is important. And I'm minded of a saying that goes that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And I think it's really important for us to benefit from the good practices of others and to really leverage the kinds of things that we do know so that we can all benefit from it. And academia plays, in the Caribbean region especially, plays a pivotal role in supporting our stakeholders in the region. And we are here to support, and feel free to reach out so that we can also contribute and help you to go far. Thanks.
Thank you. Simone. So I'm so happy with what Professor Ramlal just shared, because really it requires us moving together, working together in order for any change to happen, and in particular within the context of small island developing states, where we are challenged by various issues related to our geographies. And so with that, how it is that partnership collaboration is key. The engagement with respect to regional bodies that actually sit within the region, who understand the unique context, the peculiarities, the stakeholders, the mechanisms, the systems that exist, and how to work those towards the benefit of the individual countries is also key in terms of this partnership and this collaboration. The building of capacity, always key. And so I'm very happy to hear, based on all that Dan would have shared, all that has been happening, all the future plans in terms of advancing capacity for the region. And I'm so happy, Dan, that based on all your involvement in terms of your different hats, that you're always championing the cause of the Caribbean as a region and us being able to build our individual capacity. So very happy for that. Thank you for that support as we continue to advance and really look at how geospatial information and location intelligence can really advance the Caribbean as a region and individual economies. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Simone. Thank you so much to all of our esteemed panelists and for this important information, and for facilitating this session, for being present early, for working through whatever challenges that we experience. And we really look forward to continuing the discussion even as the other sessions goes on. And with that, I hand over to my esteemed colleague, Elizabeth Thorne from UN-GGIM for the next session. Elizabeth, please.
Hello, good morning again, colleagues, and thank you, Valerie, for taking us through a very engaging session there with all of our esteemed panelists, giving and sharing a lot of things are going on to build collaboration, relationships, and so as we move forward to address our sustainable development challenges in the region. So thank you so much, all of you, from Desiree to Danielle, Salim, Professor Ramlal, and Simone. Thank you so very much. So I would like to move into our third session, where we will be asking 3 of our panelists to deal and share with us their applications at the national level. So we welcome Mr. Paul Collymore, who is the manager of Information System Lands and Surveys Department in Barbados. And then we will move on to Simone again. We will welcome her again to share with us and further elaborate on what she was sharing earlier with the Jamaica context. And we will round up our panel or our discussions with Mr. Lim Liam, the Deputy Director of the Geospatial Policy and Engagement Singapore Land Authority. So without further ado, I will pass on to Mr. Collymore to share with us the Barbados experience. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. We're so happy that we are able to participate in this event this morning. I want to also welcome my colleagues, the Chief Surveyor from Barbados, David McCollin, and also Michelle Sinclair, as Surveyor, Land Surveyor. I'll just share my screen now. Okay. So the Lands and Surveys Department has been working quite a bit on GIS services and on tools and projects that make services and data available to the public. I'm hoping you're, oh, there it is, right. And one of them that we have developed, some innovation that we had recently, is called the Barbados Building ID. So one of our foci would be that we make a difference in the life of the average Barbadian, and we do that by providing GIS tools and services that allow the postman, allow the nurse, to allow a teacher to actually see something beneficial that they can use. I mean, you can develop something that's really nice, but unless it affects your citizens and makes their life better, then, you know, it has more worth and more beneficial, you know, it has more benefits. So I want to just talk about 3 areas. The first area is called the mischief, the solution, and the future. We've called it the mischief because this is a coin phrase that our Prime Minister uses. She would ask, what is the mischief that you're trying to solve? And one of the mischiefs that we found was that there was no official address standards in Barbados. Now, this has led to some issues that citizens were experiencing. One would be the delivery and the reception of services and goods. You know, having medication, having food, having lumber delivered to persons, that was quite taxing and challenging. And that might not seem important until you think about emergency services. How do the responders respond and find you if you have an emergency? People are experiencing long waits for emergency services. Not that the finding you is the only thing that created the makes it difficult, but that it is one of the factors. The third area of mischief is addressing standards. There is a lack of addressing standards in Barbados, and it can lead to inconsistencies. And it creates the fourth area, which would be disparate databases, where people are recording addresses in different ways. So I'll go through some of the mischiefs and why it has come to this. But we'll talk here firstly about the cost of mischief. And of course, you know this. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes money, it impacts everything that you can imagine. And so it was very important for us to think and talk about addressing this mischief. Some of the progenitors of this mischief would be, I've got about 5 things here: inconsistent nomenclature, where neighbors are using different addresses. When they go to agencies and they say what their address is, they will use a different address, although they're neighbors. So it has created some challenges for those who are creating databases for their customers that record their addresses. As you can see in the bottom part there at the right, this is a typical address database in Barbados, where people have different districts and villages and road names in different columns, and it makes it very challenging to do an analysis, to find all of the persons within a specific district so that you can do some type of analysis. The second one would be inconsistent spelling. This one is very famous, the word Fortescue in St. Philip in Barbados. I have done some research as far back as I could, and even on legal documents, they're spelt differently on those documents. And the final one there, Waldrons and Warrens. I actually was doing a heritage map, and there were different documents pointing to 3 different spellings of the same area. So inconsistent spelling, we know that it happens in Barbados, and it creates some of the mischief. And I'm sure throughout the Caribbean, you might experience this as well, where we have roads that are not named properly, and it creates some issues because you can't include that road name as part of your address because you simply don't know it. Or there are people who do know the road name, but when they include it on their address and someone is trying to find them, there are no road signs. So, you know, especially in the rural areas, you really cannot find that person quickly. Fourthly, a lot of persons, if they are in a densely populated area, they all use the same address. So you will find a database filled with Bush Hall, St. Michael. Everyone lives in Bush Hall, St. Michael, but it makes it very challenging to find a specific person who lives in Bush Hall unless there's another type of solution. And fifthly, in Barbados, they are unknown district boundaries. So you really don't know where one location ends and one begins. So there's an opportunity to use what we have in existence in Barbados, which is a large number of persons using mobile phones. We also have the ability to use GIS layers and software, and we have collaborated with other agencies that allow us to come up with our solution. The solution has to be resilient. It has to, despite what address standards exist, it must be able to be used in a robust way. It must integrate with databases that exist so that there is, no need to redo an entire database. It must be simple and it must be accessible. So we've come up with something called the Barbados Building ID, which is a polygon that represents all of the built structures in Barbados, and they have all been assigned a unique ID. And we've created a mobile application that allows citizens to use that mobile application to find the building ID of any building ID across Barbados quite simply. And here's an example of how it is used. It's not going to take too long. So simply, once you know the BBID, you enter it into the app. And the next thing that happens is you click on that record and it takes you directly to the building. And from there, you click on the building and it allows you to get directions. And that takes less than 20 seconds. And it's much easier than using a paragraph to describe what is a person's location, and it happens much more easily. We also have some other features within the app, such as location, the polygon from the tax records that are all homogeneous, that tell us this is a specific location. We've included roads and the names of businesses. We got that through collaboration with the Barbados Statistical Service in their recent census. So the future is now. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission, for example, are going to use the Barbados Building ID to perform a service called address verification. You no longer have to bring a utility bill or do all of that hassle. You can simply log into the system and prove where someone lives. And they also need it because legislation says that they must know the number of voters in each constituency. And the Barbados Postal Service, they're also on board. It allows them to deliver their mail and packages in a much better way, much more, and also we have other agencies that are going to find using the Barbados Building ID very important. For example, emergency responses, utility services, and delivery services. It makes life much more simple and allows persons to deliver services, do installations, do inspections, do repairs, deliver hardware, do freighting, provide medication. All of those things will become much more simple using the Barbados Building ID. We do expect that there will be...
I'm sorry, Paul.
Yes.
Sorry, Paul. I'm just wondering if probably give you about a minute or so to wrap up.
Yes, this is my final slide. Thanks.
Final slide.
Yes,
Oh,
this is the
Thank
final
you so much.
slide. Thanks. So we're expecting the safety and welfare of citizens. We're expecting it to be an economy driver. We're going to expect higher productivity using the Barbados Building ID. We expect it not to be disruptive because you don't have to retransform your databases. And we really expect great public engagement and participation. One of the threats, of course, is you must use technology and we must maintain the building layer. And there's the aspect of data privacy management, which is important to us. And that brings me to the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was very insightful. Just coming down to the details, the devil is in the details. And something as simple as that, well, what we may seem or what we may think is simple is so critical, and you've shown the applicability across so many different areas. Thank you so very much. I would like to introduce our next presenter, Simone Lloyd, to continue our discussion or her discussion on the Jamaica context. Thank you so much, Simone.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Please confirm that you're able to see my slides.
We can see your screen, not the presented slides.
Thank you. Good.
Okay.
So
Great,
within the
we can see
context, okay, well, thank you so much. So I'll be focusing on 3 areas. The application of location intelligence and geospatial information and technologies within our tourism industry or tourism sector here in Jamaica, which is a major driver with respect to our economy. Focus on national security and the importance of that where our economy is also concerned, but also looking at technologies that have helped to build climate resilience within Jamaica in terms of our moves. Again, apologies for the background. There's much excitement here in Antigua and Barbuda, so I'll try to see how best. I'm hoping you can hear me clearly. So, within the context of SIDS, the Caribbean is one of 3 small island developing states region. It has the largest quantity of states. It has 29 countries versus the Pacific and the Ames, which together combined has 28. The Caribbean sits between North and South America. It's sandwiched there, and with that, Jamaica is the largest English-speaking Caribbean, English-speaking small island developing state within the English-speaking Caribbean. So primary Jamaica is concerned, and the major driver for our economy is that of our tourism industry. So whether it's a case whereby persons are coming, where primarily persons tend to come for sun, sea, and sand, either they will arrive via cruise ships or via aircraft primarily. Quite a variety in terms of accommodation and activities that are ecotourism based and otherwise, and so persons are forever engaged. But as I spoke to, the fact that sun, sea, and sand, in particular sea and sand, are primary with respect to attraction in terms of persons coming here and enjoying our resources in Jamaica. What has been happening, however, is there has been a decline in, based on research that has been done, decline in beach experience, of which tourists have spoken to, also locals. So there is impact where vacation is concerned, vacationers and staycationers, because of the decline with respect to the beach experience because of sargassum. So sargassum is a real challenge in the Caribbean region, and in particular shores of Jamaica were impacted significantly by sargassum than other areas. Tourism has really grown 36%. It has outpaced our total economic growth by 10%. And so with that, it contributes at least 10% of our GDP. So that speaks to how important it is. Based on that, the Tourism Enhancement Fund has found it important strategic to partner with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and its National Spatial Data Management branch, and with us partnering with T. Carter Carib to examine and to do an early warning system with respect to modeling sargassum, with respect to source and the track that it takes, and which areas within the Caribbean in terms of countries are impacted, which coastlines are impacted, and how it is that we can strategize with respect to reducing, mitigating the impacts of sargassum. So this is a project which commenced this year and should be continuing until next year, looking at sargassum tracking and predictive modeling. So with that, pre-2013, sargassum, with respect to it being a challenge, would have been limited. Post, it has been very significant for our number of our beaches, which is why the TAF has invested significant funds to be able to develop this modeling tool. The benefits of the project really should be supporting the development of the tourism in the tourism sector and the sustainability of our sector, so that we're able to get more tourists coming, but also for our locals to be able to stay here and really enjoy through staycation the resources that are here. So that project, which has started, should continue until October. After that, we should have a full rollout as to what that looks like. And so what it is hinged on is the significant use of Earth observation data to facilitate the modeling that is necessary. Apart from that, national security is key. JS has a force multiplier with respect to the Jamaica Defense Force. And so with that, the Jamaica Defense Force has been key with respect to using location intelligence and geospatial information with respect to curtailing illicit narcotics trade, Also looking at youth engagement throughout the island, because of course with youth engagement it should reduce crime rates in various areas of the island, because of course youth will be engaged. Special operations measures, the planning and the strategizing where those are concerned is significantly hinged on location intelligence and its utilization, but also the manning of our territorial waters, looking at our maritime domain and creating greater awareness and policing of that is also hinged and with respect to hinged on location intelligence and the use of geospatial information. So over time, we've had a number of zones of special operations or states of emergencies, and with these various activities, geospatial information, location intelligence has been key with respect to the Jamaica Defense Force and also the Jamaica Constabulary Force being able to maneuver, to man, and being able to provide the requisite support that is needed nationally in terms of our national security. With respect to our climate resilience efforts, there are two major accomplishments. That of the Meteorological Services of Jamaica and the Jamaica Fire Brigade being able to develop a bushfire warning index. So there is a project with respect to Jamaica against bushfires, and with this project, this bushfire warning index would have been developed to help build Jamaica's climate and disaster resilience in terms of our capabilities or capacity. And so what it does is it utilizes rainfall, temperature, soil type, land use data to determine the risk of fire for targeted areas. Of course, with the increased onset in terms of climate change and climate impacts, we're having increasing droughts. Persons would have been at different side events that have occurred during the week here, of which Jamaica would have presented. You would have heard of the challenges we're facing in terms of our droughts, given climate change related impacts, and with that, measures that have been put in place as a result. Apart from that, bushfires is a primary concern also. And so the warning index is supposed to help with respect to being able to understand and predict which areas will be impacted by these events. All right, and so with that, creating greater awareness and education with respect to the communities that are impacted, so that they are charged and armed with respect to being able to respond and also being able to mitigate the impacts of these events. Right.
Hi, Simone. Just a couple of, maybe just a minute to wrap up.
All right, no problem. So in closing, I would love to speak to the JSRAT, the Jamaica Systematic Risk Assessment Tool, of which would have been spoken to on multiple occasions in different side events here for the week. And so with that, how it is that a climate technology would have been developed to transform how countries anticipate, prepare, and adapt to intensifying climatic conditions. So Jamaica is the world's first country to be using this technology with respect to development of this platform called JSRAT, because the fact is, if we have any coastal flooding is a significant factor. At least 70% of our population falls within 5 kilometers of our coastline. And so if there is any coastal flooding, we stand significant loss. So increasingly, we've had significant in the millions in terms of US dollars with respect to that. And so different from that, hurricanes, the impact of hurricanes and how that exacerbates that. So the tool is used to assess or assets within the coastal zone that are at risk with respect to being impacted by climatic conditions. So we're happy for progress with respect to this groundbreaking tool. And so with that, we look forward to advancing its development.
Okay,
and I close.
Simone, thank you. Thanks a lot, Simone. You gave us 4 very valuable pointers there with regards to applications in Jamaica tourism and looking at how to manage and address sargassum, the Defense Force, linking location in terms of security, building climate resilience, and of course the JSRAT tool to allow countries to adapt to intensifying climate conditions. Excellent presentation, Simone. Thank you so very much. And our final presenter, Mr. Lim Liang. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, sir. Welcome, and we look forward to your presentation, exploring your stories in Singapore. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. You got my name spot on. So I'm sharing my screen right now, and just wanting to check if everyone can see it in full screen.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, and good morning to everyone. First of all, thanks to Cecile and the technical committee of CARIGEO for inviting Singapore to share more about our geospatial applications at this fourth international conference on SIDS. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with Singapore, perhaps we have also shared some commonalities with SIDS. We are also an island, but a city-state, sitting in the crossroads of Asia. We are highly densely built up. We do not have any natural resources. So over the years, we have mainly relied on our human capital, on Singapore's development. And over the years, we have also invested in geospatial development, which underpins perhaps all of our urban planning and infrastructure development today. So this is our high-level view of our national spatial data infrastructure, where as a geospatial agency, we put in place the policies, the infrastructure, and the capacity, the platforms needed to support the use of geospatial in the various domains today. And over the years, geospatial in Singapore has definitely grown in traction, be it more data shared through geoportals and common location services use. Thanks very much to the strong collaborations of our government agencies here in Singapore. And just this year, we launched the refreshed Singapore Geospatial Master Plan, which focuses on three key thrusts. First, on what we call mainstreaming the use of geospatial. So we have seen its benefits applied in Singapore's urban planning landscape for the past 10 years or so. And we want to really see how we can extend its benefits to other sectors, such as the social, healthcare, and the economic sector. And additionally, we aim to deepen our capabilities through some of the various programs that are listed here, as well as to contribute wherever possible back to the global community. So over the next couple of slides, I'll share a little bit more of some of our applications and examples. So first up here is our national mapping program, which actually helps to collect the data that we need to support our research institutions in their study on climate change, from measuring solar potential on the right to carbon sink estimation on the bottom right, as well as sea level rise and coastal protection, right? Important concerns and perhaps common challenges as SIDS being an island city-state ourselves. We have also partnered with our healthcare groups to apply geospatial to support preventive health. Preventive health is a relatively new concept in Singapore, where we aim to move away from just improving acute care in our hospitals to focus on encouraging citizens to lead an active lifestyle so that they do not need to go to hospitals in the first place. So how geospatial comes in is we, together with volunteers on the ground, actually help to map both formal and informal sporting activities or leisure activities like gardening to exercise classes, so that doctors or volunteers can help to recommend or nudge seniors to partake in some of these activities. So this process in the healthcare world is known as social prescribing, largely experimental in Singapore's context, and we hoped to combine geospatial with healthcare to sort of yield good results in population health in the long run. Now, another example is where we map barrier-free access routes in Singapore to help our wheelchair users and senior citizens to get around more easily. This is particularly important for Singapore as we are facing an aging population where mobility can be a challenge. So we work with our social agencies, our volunteer groups, even students to map and test out the application. We have yet to map the whole of Singapore. That would be a very big task. So we are focused on transportation nodes, last mile, etc. So the goal is really to help people with disabilities to be reintegrated back to the society and really think about how do we apply geospatial for good, lack of a better term, to help build a more inclusive community. So perhaps as a last slide, as a quick reflection, many of these examples and our NSDI development has only been possible because of the various IGIF components that I think the previous presenters have expounded on, that Singapore has put in place slowly over the years. So another key point is about the strong partnerships that we have, not only with government agencies, but with academia and the private sector. I believe each sector has different strengths and key roles to play to uplift the entire ecosystem. So for the Singapore case, we are at the beginning on the next leg of our geospatial journey. There has been many challenges along the way, and happy to share more over that, perhaps over chat or another opportunity. So once again, thanks for the opportunity to share a brief overview on the Singapore experience so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lim. It was a wonderful presentation. What I found very interesting is you sort of showed us, you took us through the journey Singapore has gone through, and I'm sure a lot of our participants would find that very useful. But also, when you spoke about social, bringing in the social aspect and aiming to help persons with disability integrate into the society, I thought that was really very amazing in terms of that example. And also your link with your health experts and so on, and volunteers, really involving everyone. One of the main things in social, the sustainable development goals is having people-centered goals. And I think you really exemplified that. So thanks again. So that brings us to the end of our presentation from Paul, Simone, and Lim. Thank you so very much. Opening up the floor now to any persons who may like to ask them some further questions with regards to challenges and how they achieved those things that they achieved, all very great country examples. I'm also welcoming people to continue putting questions in the chat. I see there's quite a bit of engagement in the chat. So if there's any questions, if there are any questions that you'd like to pose to our presenters, you can do so in the chat as well. Okay. I see Valerie is signaling to me that because of the time constraints, just like to thank everyone for their presence here. And I know we have to wrap things up. So please, if you have any further questions, you can always reach out to us and our presenters, and we can answer your questions accordingly. So I pass over to our colleague, Cecile Blake, to offer closing remarks. Thank you so very much for the great presentations. Over to you, Cecile.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I realize that I'm completely out of time, so my first point of duty is to ask for 5 minutes of your time. I know that you may need to go back to your meetings and have other engagements. First, I would like to say thank you all, or panelists or moderators, and most importantly, for participants. I'm seeing 46 participants online, and I want to thank you all, for those of you, especially our presenter from Singapore, who stayed with us. I know Singapore is 11 hours ahead of us, so thank you very much, Lim, for being with us. We're very appreciative. I'm going to go straight into my conclusions. What a feast of information that was shared in the past 2 hours. You have heard a few new terms, such as maybe location intelligence. You learned what it was. We learned about data hubs. What is the open data cube? And I captured a number of phrases that I thought I should share that I thought was very insightful. Don't be afraid to test new approaches. Having a seat at the table and being able to access the knowledge and information from others, it is important. We need open lines of communication. We need to dialogue. And geospatial data is for the good and well-being of our peoples. And in order to go far, we need to work together. But first, we began with the premise that location intelligence and geospatial information can be a panacea to development because it facilitates planning, monitoring, and responding to national priorities and challenges. We saw where Alvaro listed quite a number of things that we believed is important in order for us to move forward using geospatial. Spoke about cooperation, having financing, awareness, and understanding, standards, knowledge, capacity, data sharing, leadership, and national mandates. And all our speakers addressed those very same topics. And what came out from the presentations was that existing, and even in the chat, people were talking about, you know, there are gaps in terms of data. We need to have the capacity development. But what came out from the presentations is that there are international, regional, and national institutions and working arrangements that are existing, operational, and supports your work using geospatial and location intelligence. So the frameworks are there. We have the work that is being done by the UN-GGIM out of the UN in New York. We have the international technical organizations such as FIG and its supporting organizations. We now have the UN-GGIM Geospatial Global Geodesy Center for Excellence in Germany that supports the FIG's work. We have the work of the private sector, the NGO community. We have the SDG Data Alliance. We have our universities. We have our regional organizations such as UN-GGIM Americas, and specifically we have CARIGEO that support the work in the Caribbean. Okay, and so what is important is for what came out was for our member states and our agencies to actively identify all these groups, know where your challenges are. And I like Barbados and the Prime Minister's use. She doesn't say challenges. She says, what is it, Paul? Mischief. So identify your mischief and actively identify. Simone spoke about knowing where the strength of your collaborators, what are their strengths and which ones you need to seek. So Daniel spoke about building your networks, right? Bring them all to your table to share and to expand your capabilities and to use the commonalities that we share to interact. And we saw where governments, the scientific organizations, the private sector, the NGO, the educational institutions are all important. We spoke about, so we have the institutional arrangements in place. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but there are also the various hubs and tools that are available to support the work that we're doing. And of course, we heard about the various hubs, the SDG data hubs, the need to prepare country-level action plans to develop capacity development interventions. We had the launch of the SIDS Global Data Hub and the Center of Excellence. We have the Geospatial Observation Center, UWI, and the Caribbean Geospatial Portal. All of these portals provide data, tools, and services. But most importantly, you also need to contribute to these hubs and these services to make them work and to make them serve your purpose. And then, of course, we had the lovely presentations from the various countries that you just saw. But what came out most importantly, the key points were the importance of capacity development, the strong partnerships and collaborations that were needed, and of course, research and innovation, which is very key. I think we need to do more of that. And of course, we have groups that provide technical and professional support, awareness building, having access to resources. But oftentimes we speak about strong partnerships and collaborations, but these are skill sets that maybe we need to find ways in which we can educate and teach people how to use those skill sets. So it's more than just about how do you network, how do you build partnerships, how do you collaborate. But these were some of the main things that came out of the presentations. But what was sure is that the arrangements are there, the tools are there, the skill sets are there. So we need now the leadership and the impetus to make it happen. In closing, I want to highlight a number of upcoming events. There's the 14th annual session for the Global Geospatial Information Management Group that happens annually in August. It will be held from the 7th to the 9th of August in New York. This is a member state invited event. Of course, observers to the United Nations can also attend. And of course, we also have our flagship event that will be happening from the 8th to the 10th of October later this year in Mexico City. It will be the UN-GGIM 7th High Level Forum. You're all invited to attend, of course, at your expense. And on the margins of the High Level Forum, we'll be having the 11th plenary session of UN-GGIM Americas, where all member states within the Americas, from Canada to Argentina in the south, and of course the Caribbean, are all invited to attend. And I've been asked to have everybody who is attending this session to turn on your cameras and to take a picture. And while you're doing that, I would like to extend thank you to the organizers of this event, which included ECLAC, or Technical Secretariat for UN-GGIM America's CARIGEO. We'd like to also extend thanks to INEGI Mexico, who is a standing partner for CARIGEO, who provided all the graphics, that lovely graphics you have been seeing. And of course, to all our presenters, our panelists, and of course, you, our participants who joined us today. I hope you benefited immensely from this very informative and educational webinar. Thank you so very much. Bye. But please turn on your cameras. I do not know who will be taking the picture, but please go ahead.
I'm taking Cecile. I'm taking.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
And thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
Best wishes for the rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone. Take good care.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks.
Abrazos.
Okay, we